right, we want to go back to that question with Congressman Mike Johnson, who is joining us on the line right now. And thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Can you hear us now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. A lot of people are wondering when that stimulus check will arrive, especially those who are unemployed right now. Any answers for them?
Well, we are giving you the latest and greatest that we know from the Treasury Department. Secretary Mnuchin, as you know, has been trying to keep the American people abreast of this. And the latest that we have heard is that most should receive those checks by April 17th at the latest. Now, if you filed a 2018 tax return or a 2019 tax return, as long as you have a valid Social Security number and you're on file currently with the IRS, you should get a direct deposit in your account from those amounts, so long as they have that direct deposit information. Otherwise, some will get a written check in the mail. But again, they're telling us by mid-April.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Congressman. A next question comes from one of our viewers, a small business owner who asks, can you give us a brief overview of the package that was passed this last weekend? Congressman Johnson, go ahead.
Sure. So the top line on the CARES Act, we called it the CARES Act, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, is that it really has several components. The one that has gotten the most attention is the relief, the paycheck that will be coming, income to every American family. And as you know, it's been covered. Individuals will get $1,200, and a married couple will get $2,400. There'll be a $500 stipend effectively that will be added on for each child you have. Now, upper income earners that'll be phased down. If you make above $75,000 a year annually as an individual, you'll get a little bit less, and then it phases out totally at an individual income of $99,000 a year or $198,000 per married couple. Now, the other big part of the package that's gotten a lot of attention is the loan program that converts to a grant, forgivable loans that are provided for small businesses around the country. And that's what you hear so much about, the Paycheck Protection Program. And the idea was, the theory behind this is that we wanted to keep employees tied to their employer so that we can endure, hopefully it's no more than 8 weeks. And then on the other side of this pandemic, everyone is still attached to their employer. This is a loan program that's low interest, favorable payment terms, that small business owners can take advantage of. And if they follow the rules and they don't reduce payroll, don't reduce employee numbers, the loan that they get from the government will convert to a grant, and effectively it is a gift to tide them over this season. There's some other, of course.
Sorry to interrupt. We want to tackle that issue a little bit later in this program. I want to stay on the topic for just another moment of individuals who will soon receive that unemployment benefit. We've got someone who wants to know if those unemployment benefits.
The stimulus check, as it's being called, is not a taxable income to you now due to no fault of their own. The government made the difficult decision effectively to shut down most sectors of the economy, and so the government also needs to make people whole for that. This is, as the president has said rightfully, we're in a war against an unseen and unforeseen enemy, and that's why the feds are stepping in to try to assist everyone. We hope it helps. So no, it's not taxable income.
Okay. So the federal government, the state of Louisiana, and city leaders are all working to provide help to keep businesses going.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we continue our look at COVID-19, the economics of a pandemic. Keep it right here.
Welcome back, everyone. There are two forms of new financial rescue for businesses that are struggling through this pandemic. At 5 o'clock, we told you about PPP. That's the Payroll Protection Program. Now we're going to talk about EDIL, Economic Disaster Impact Loans. You can apply for them through the Small Business Administration's website. And by just starting the application, $10,000 goes to your bank account within 3 days. The loan is credited against your PPP loan if you take out one of those.
But because the PPP will take some time to come through, this is extremely attractive to businesses that are struggling right this second, having a cash crunch, and need cash quickly.
You can apply for an EDIL at this website. That's covid19relief.sba.gov. There's more information on the local help desk, shreve.biz, and links to everything is on KTBS.com. So on that subject, let's turn to our panel because we believe they've been working with a number of clients and banks on getting SBA loans or perhaps other loans. So we have Hardy Foreman, who is a local accountant with Carr, Riggs and Ingram. Mr. Foreman, we understand that you've been working with businesses and banks on loans. Tell us how that's going. Okay, how about we check with our banker, Carl Thibodeau, on that question. Mr. Thibodeau, are you getting inquiries from businesses wanting to get loans so they can survive this?
Absolutely, I'm getting several. The EIDL program, if you'd like me to discuss that for you, I'd be glad to.
Sure.
It is a direct loan with the SBA, as was stated, but it's not a forgiven loan. This is a direct loan with them, and you apply online. The SBA site has been dealing with a lot of traffic these days, as you can imagine, and their peak times are running between 7 and 7. I went through the process just to see what it was like, and it was about a 3-hour process, and they say it takes about 2 hours and a half. So I was pretty close in there, but you can include your payroll, your rent, mortgage interest in this particular program. The SBA makes the determination of how much you can borrow based on your total expenses that are eligible, averaged out times 2.5%. Now, with this particular program, it is a 3.75% rate for a term up to 30 years. If you're a business, and if you're a nonprofit entity, then you could borrow at 2.75%. And under the EIDL, if your loan is under $200,000, you do not have a personal guarantee requirement. And if you exceed that, then all owners at the 20% level or greater need to personally guarantee it. And I'll just, if I had my add to this, on this particular program that's offered, there's 5 different SBA forms that I was able to glean from my exposure to it. And I would advise your listeners to, although you can download these forms on the SBA site, I'd recommend that you go online and download them and perhaps even complete them, and then upload to your when you make the application. It would make it a little bit smoother as you process. And if time allows, I could provide the listeners with the actual SBA form numbers so it'd help them in the process.
Carl, what about the person who doesn't have a relationship with the bank, the business owner who does not have a relationship with the bank?
That's fine. We're willing to listen and discuss any of the requests as long as they comply with all the other rules that we have to comply with to fit this program. We'd be glad to meet with them.
Okay. And I understand that sometimes these SBA loans become grants. Do those also have to be paid back, or is there forgiveness on those?
I couldn't understand. Say again.
Are some of the loans forgiven and not paid back, or all of them required to be paid back?
Well, under the EIDL, those are not forgiven. Actually, the EIDL, I think, would fit better for the business owner who does not have a payroll per se, and this program would fit better for that applicant instead of the PPP program, which is payroll driven.
Well, while we're on the subject, we went into PPP in our news at 5, but for the viewers who weren't with us, can you explain more about that, the payroll protection program?
The PPP is actually the phase 1 of the process and in the stimulus. It's administered by the bank, and there is, as we all know, there is a feature of forgiveness within it. It will provide funds up to 8 weeks of payroll costs, utilities, rent, and mortgage interest. But the key point is that, and you have to remember that at least 75% of the total requested, 75% of the forgiven sum has to be used for payroll. And that's an important point to remember because it is a payroll-driven item. There's no personal guarantees, no collateral, no credit check. And the first 6 months, you're not required to pay interest and payments to the bank. And then after the 8-week period of time, then you can seek and apply for forgiveness of that particular loan. That applies under the payroll segment.
Okay, and to apply, let's make sure our business owners that are watching know how to apply. I believe through PPP, they want to go through their local lender, such as your bank, right?
They can, and we'd be glad to send the links to them to connect with their application process. And as far as the other documentation, it's very, very simple. Tax returns, financial statements, the usual that you'd have to have in a business request. But the key element would be the 941, the schedule, payroll schedule. You really need to see that, as well as history of payroll or for the previous year of their employees. And
quickly, the EDIL, they need to apply through the Small Business Administration's website.
That's correct. That's direct online with the SBA. That's right, SBA.gov.
And there was another loan program rolled out today during the governor's regular address, and Secretary Pearson joined him for that. And Secretary, if you can still hear us, tell us a little bit more about this program for businesses who have fewer than 100 employees.
Absolutely. Glad to, Brenda. We're rolled out today a additional loan program. It's not one that's in competition with the SBA. We're so appreciative of the very strong support that's being provided. And thank you, Congressman, for your leadership in this activity, getting funds to small businesses. So we wanted to augment that opportunity. And with SBA, you qualify at 500 or under. We're really trying to bring something to the moms and pops in the rural areas, as well as our urban areas. But 100 people or fewer in your company. Basically, the state's leading this with a loan guarantee position that's an assistance to your local bank. You go there for our participating lenders, and we're working with a pool of $50 million, and we'll be tranching that out to the banks that want to participate with us. And what the whole program revolves around your loan officer there at the bank. He will make the decisions. He'll use the same underwriting criteria. If you do have a banking relationship, all your information is essentially on file already, and it's just a matter of taking advantage of the program, which provides a up 3.5% fixed rate loan for up to 5 years, with that first 180 days, 6 months, with no interest and no payment requirements. And so while PPP, a grant program, great, ties those individuals on the payroll to the company and provides a reimbursement back to the company, that will make the company whole with their payroll. This program will provide for the forward-looking things, supplies, working capital, those kind of things that the company may need and have a strong demand for.
So I think you've answered my question that I was going to ask next, is that you can qualify for more than one loan.
It is our understanding, although we would suggest that the loan officer uses the guidance issued by SBA to clarify that and to be certain. Certainly with the way that these programs are being developed, we have seen guidance that indicates that it's workable, but we want to be confident that the SBA is concurring with that and protect you from being excluded from any other program.
Right. My understanding was, I believe it's EDIL, you can get cash more quickly while you wait for PPP to come through.
Yeah, those are both the two federal lanes, and we think that those are great programs, but to augment that for this is life support for these small businesses. They're trying to stay afloat. Their whole revenue stream has been disrupted, and we're seeing that more than 40% of businesses are being impacted across the nation. So to comfortably go see your local banker who knows you, talk to him or her about how you proceed, and have some ready access for up to $100,000 to keep that business afloat during this time of disruption is a great companion piece to what SBA is doing.
Much needed. Thank you. So stay right where you are. We have many more questions for you from our viewers, and we'll ask those when we come back.
Stay with us, everyone. Welcome back in, everyone.
And we are continuing our look at the economic impact of COVID-19. Went to a local dentist who has a question for our panel now.
So we want to know what happens if you wait until Friday when your local bank has the applications versus the S.B.A. having them today, since it's on a first come, first served basis. How do we deal with that?
Okay, we've got a group of panelists there. Who wants to take on that question?
If I may, this is Hardy Foreman. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us. Go ahead.
Well, the PPP, Paycheck Protection Plan loan, has to go through your financial institution, and that won't be available until Friday. Now, the EDIL loan can be filed directly with the S.B.A. on their website, and that could be done now. So my advice to the dentist is go ahead and start compiling your information that you know will be necessary for the filing of the PPP loan, and have that ready for your financial institution on Friday to help expedite that on Friday.
Okay, great information. Hardy Foreman, by the way, CPA with Carr, Riggs and Ingram. He's part of our roundtable that we've assembled here electronically for you as we discuss the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Also joining us, Congressman Mike Johnson, Don Pearson with Louisiana Economic Development, and Community Bank Carl Thibodeau also joining us this evening. So we have another question here, and this question is from Dr. Christopher Wright of Fresh Dental, another dental practice, this one in Bossier City. And here is his question. He asks, if a business owner accepts the S.B.A. 7A, how long before the funds are dispersed, and how do you pay your staff in the meantime? Should we send that one to Mr. Thibodeau?
I would think he's talking about I'm thinking he's talking about the 7A guarantee, which is separate from the EIDL, but I believe the EIDL is under the 7A, but I might be referring to that. If that's the case, then the EIDL is, again, an online application, and it's pretty quick and it's pretty simple. Now, the turnaround time, you're probably looking at a few weeks to get that turned around and to get that get funding in your hands.
Okay, and that makes the EDIL that much more important then, I would think, because that's a faster way to get cash?
Well, I don't think it's going to be as quick as the PPP, but it is another option.
Okay.
Right. And lots of questions out there, just like we're asking right now, and we have much more to ask our panelists right after this break.
And we welcome you back to KTBS 3's Roundtable discussion.
We're continuing our look at the economic impact of COVID-19, and good news for business owners today. Governor John Bel Edwards announced a new loan program for Main Street and rural businesses. It's called the Louisiana Portfolio Guarantee Program. It's a $50 million fund to help small businesses stay afloat. Businesses with fewer than 100 employees can receive up to $100,000 in loans.
There is no interest applied and no payments due for the first 6 months. These loan decisions will be made by local bankers who know their communities and know these businesses and these business people. After the first 6 months, interest rates will be no more than 3.5%.
And small businesses can go to opportunitylouisiana.com to find out more information about that. And with that in mind, we want to go to another question. Sam has a question, and Sam wants to know more about employee retention credit. Who wants to take that question? Employee retention credit.
That sounds like Hardy Foreman's ball of wax. Is that right?
I think that needs to fall in my lap.
Okay, go for it.
The employee retention payroll tax credit, essentially a payroll tax credit of up to 50% of wages paid. And it's, basically, if you see your gross receipts decline by more than 50% compared to the same quarter or prior year, it's for employers with less than 100 full-time employees. It's based on the wages of employees. So it's limited to the first 10,000 paid per employee wages, and including health benefits. The time period is from March 13th to December 31st, 2020. So you're talking about a 50% tax credit, which is basically $5,000 per employee maximum credit. So I think it's a very good credit for those employers that are retaining their employees during this crisis, this pandemic.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd like to go to Don Pearson for just a moment. And Don, one of the things that you said earlier, you're making it easier for banks to support these loans. How are you doing that? And will it be difficult for a person to qualify?
No, it should be really the exact same standards that the loan officer would typically help his client with. And I think that's just sort of part of the beauty of the program. The state is playing a role as a part of the loan guarantee of the package. So the bank is really loaning its own money, and the state is really providing an insurance policy so that loans that don't produce the outcome that we all hope for, but loans that fail, the state steps in to take a percentage of that loan loss. So the bank has a lower risk profile, has a great familiarization with the company that is receiving the monies. That company gets that same 6 month zero interest, 6 months no payment. So it can be a way to bridge this crisis period. Again, we love the S.B.A. programs. We just think that this is an avenue that offers sort of a lower documentation requirement and sort of a streamlined application, if you will, and a speed of access as well.
All right. Congressman Johnson, are you still there?
I'm here.
All right. Let me ask you a quick question. I know that Jerry has a question for you as well. What about the individuals who are now in the midst of not having a paycheck for the first time and may not have one for some time to come? Forbearance is being offered, but is this a situation where forgiveness could be considered? Because even after 3 months, even with the additional money, the stimulus money, a person may not be able to catch up on 3 months' rent or 3 months of utility bills.
Well, that's a great question, and it's one of the features of this legislation that Congress passed last week. The idea behind the CARES Act is that we're extending unemployment benefits to many people who may never have been eligible for that before. So you're talking about contractors and people who work for themselves, sole proprietors, and that kind of thing. And so we've extended that would not normally be available to everyone effectively. And as you've heard, part of the act allows an additional $600 per week to go to those persons through July 31 or through the end of July. So in Louisiana right now, I think the maximum that you can get on unemployment in Louisiana per week is $247. So you'll add $600 to that. So the idea here is to try to make people whole and allow them to bridge this gap to get through this crisis. So we all do that together, and we emerge on the other side ready to get right back to work. Obviously, if someone can get to work as soon as possible, as soon as we lift the economic, open the economy up again, as I know everyone wants to do and is trying to do, it's desperately needed and important. Everybody who is going stir crazy at home can get right back to work, and we want to make sure those businesses are still open to be able to do that, and that's the purpose behind the business loans and everything else we're discussing.
Very good. Time for a break. Back with more after this.
The weather's going to be beautiful, but we're not going to have the festivals, the celebrations, and that's unfortunate, but it is just the reality of the situation.
On Bill Edwards acknowledging the impact the virus will have on one of the state's top economic engines, from Bourbon Street down in New Orleans and right here in Shreveport, where spring usually means big outdoor events like Mudbug Madness. The state stands to lose millions of dollars.
So we've got Texas, Oklahoma, and Florida have banned travel from Louisiana to those states. So how will that affect our tourism? Don, you want to take that question?
Well, certainly the impacts are major. Florida which will see a major disruption in their tourism industry. Disney World, as you know, is shuttered. Universal Studios is shuttered. They're going to be significantly impacted. Louisiana will be as well. Certainly, tourism plays a very important part of our economy, probably close to $8 billion and 100,000 employees or more throughout the whole program, and it multiplies farther than that if you're not talking about the direct employees at restaurants and hotels and transportation companies, the airlines, all these things that are features of this. So it is very, very challenging. The programs that we've talked about are there to help our small businesses. And as you pointed out, Brenda, we've got 75% basically of employees across America that live essentially paycheck to paycheck. So we're going to see some major negative impacts rolling across the state around tourism. It's the double whammy right now with the falling of the energy and oil prices impacting our state as well. And then the disruption that's out there for small businesses make all these efforts so important that we're all focused on right now. And again, the leadership out of Washington has been incredible. I think there was some additional guidance that came down today from Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, who are two federal institutions that back home mortgages. And you were talking about some forbearance that may be available to some of your listeners out there as well. But they have issued some guidance that there will be some flexibility in how they make their house notes during this time. And they would be well advised to get in touch with their mortgage lender to see if they can take advantage of that program as well.
And Mr. Pearson, are you satisfied with the safeguards in place to protect merchants and businesses that do business across state lines, say from people in Shreveport doing business over in Wascom or Marshall, Texas?
We are, and I know there's been a lot of concerns about these border crossings. Those are aimed at the people that should be at home, shelter in place right now. Department of Transportation in Louisiana, Secretary Sean Wilson, we've been very clear and have great connections into Texas, into Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. And commerce, interstate commerce, will not be interrupted. Everybody realizes how important it is to maintain the supply chain, both for our grocery stores and food supply, as well as keeping industry to the degree that we can operating so that they can continue to power our economy. So not worried. We've got great mechanisms in place, and the commercial traffic, military officers, law enforcement should have no trouble with state-to-state access. And those that it's just not the right time to be a tourist and go into other states. Those folks should be at home and in shelter in place. We have got to do that if we're going to flatten this curve.
You're absolutely right. We are in control of that. As the governor said today, we can shorten this if we comply. Quick question for Mike Johnson before we go to a break. Congressman, there has been talk of relief for federal taxes. What about state taxes?
Well, I think that will be delayed as well. Don may be able to answer that better than me, but I'll say as a general comment before we go to break, today Wallet Hub came out with an estimation looking at all 50 states that would have the hardest time to recover post-virus, post-pandemic. Louisiana ranked number one because of that 1-2 punch that Don referenced, the oil and gas industry on top of all this. We're a resilient people, and we'll get through this, but we're going to have to pull together.
Now, I do know that the state income tax returns that were normally due May 15th have all been extended to July 15th as well.
Right. Thank you, Hardy, for that. And we'll take a break. Back with more from our panel after this. Welcome back, everyone, and back on that topic of oil and gas production that plays such a major role in the economy in Louisiana, Texas, and Oklahoma. And today we saw a crack in that industry. U.S. shale driller Whiting Petroleum filed for bankruptcy protection. Oil and gas jobs create thousands of support jobs that add to our economy. So we want to know how this is all going to trickle down. Let's send that question down to Don Pearson with Louisiana Economic Development. What about the trickle-down effect of the downturn now in oil and gas?
Well, it's certainly a very disruptive element for us. One, in the lane of employment, although that particular oil and gas sector has been declining in Louisiana for quite some time. We've done a reasonably good job of diversifying our economy, more advanced manufacturing, more IT jobs in the state, and moving away from a dependence on oil and gas. But it's still a major foundational industry for us. And the other part of the equation is a decrease in the royalties that the state stands to gain when that are tied to the price of a barrel of oil. So we all know that as that barrel price decreases, the royalty income to the state decreases significantly. So it is quite a challenging set of circumstances. And even to some degree, the gas part of this is that we've had a lot of strength in our LNG industry becoming foundational here as well. And that's all become a much softer commodity in the market. So it is definitely a time of storm for us. And we're going to have to, as the Congressman pointed out, be resilient and get to the far side of this. These are the energy resources that power the world. They don't have these in nations like Korea and Japan and Taiwan. So I think that we know over the longer term, we're going to see a return to strength in these sectors. But again, the disruption is quite difficult right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Not only royalties to the state, but families as well. You know, the drop in demand means lower prices at the pump, which is good for drivers, but that loss of revenue will impact local and state budgets. So as we consider that, what's the next thing for us? Do we just wait for that relief to come?
Well, I think one of the good things, if there is such a silver lining to all of this, and I just speak from a perspective of being through the hurricane disasters, and I think I count this as my 7th disaster to be engaged with in the recovery aspects and the response aspects, is that in the past we've had such disruption in destroyed infrastructure. The power lines were down, the buildings were flooded, and there was so much that we had to recover for. As this cloud lifts, all of that is in place, and a return to resiliency and a vibrant economy will take place much faster, we would hope, but we have every reason to believe because of not experiencing physical damage during this particular crisis.
All right, Don, we'll continue our conversation right after this. Stay with us.
We take it very seriously. We take our work seriously, but we've done that for 32 years. And so we need your support like never before.
Providence House Director Vernie Howard says they're working hard to meet the needs of families that depend on them. Right now, Providence House serves 40 families. That's about 130 people. Howard says 86 of them are children. And Providence House is like so many nonprofits coping with the coronavirus crisis. It's created a crisis for them in terms of funding to meet a growing demand. Will nonprofits, churches, and private schools receive any stimulus funds? That's a question that we can take to our panel. Congressman Johnson, you want to take that one on?
Yeah, I'm delighted to tell you that nonprofits and all those institutions that you mentioned are included. They can participate in the Paycheck Protection Program as well on the same exact basis. And so Congress was really insistent about that, and that would apply to them just as well. So they need to call their local bankers and lenders and begin this application process that we've been discussing. Because I want to hasten to say this, and I know everyone on the phone will understand and agree that Congress has put $349 billion towards this, but it's not an infinite amount of money. Now there may be a chance for another phase of this where Congress adds some to this. But, time is of the essence, so I would not sit around and wait on this, and we know that relief is needed right now, and you ought to go through the process as quickly as you can.
Here's a question for our CPA Hardy Foreman. There are lots of organizations like the Chamber of Commerce that fall into the category of 501c groups. So does the stimulus package provide any help for them? Hardy?
It's my understanding of the PPP would probably apply for them. Okay, the Paycheck Protection Plan loans.
Well, and there may be a nuance there for a 501c6 organization, trade associations and the like. Chambers of Commerce fit into that category, and unfortunately, I think in the existing language of the statute, they have been left out. Now, there's a lot of talk on the Hill in Congress about trying to fix that and remedy that, because I believe, and I've advocated, and I know that the other guests agree, all of us, that the Chambers of Commerce are essential, and they will be certainly essential in helping to rebuild the economy after we get through this. And so they need the assistance as well, and many of them run on thin margins like a small business. So we're working to try to make sure they're included if there's any question about that that Hardy just said.
Okay.
I agree. Don Pearson here. The economic injury disaster loan, I believe, is available to our 501cs, which is inclusive of the chambers, but I believe they are excluded at this time in the guidance that we're seeing for the payroll protection plan.
Okay. And any thoughts from Carl Thibodeau on that subject?
I couldn't hear him. I'm sorry.
Okay. We were talking about 501c groups and if there is stimulus funding for them.
Yes. Okay. Yes. There is an opportunity for them under that particular program. I've been reading on that lately, and there is opportunity for them. Well, certainly.
Okay. While we have Congressman Johnson here with us, I want to get his thoughts on repairs from this. Our economy is being destroyed. We had a great economy going, and now we're losing business. People are out of work. This is devastating. And I wonder, Congressman Johnson, are there discussions in Washington about holding China liable for this? What do we do about this?
There's a lot of discussion about that, and many of us believe that communist government is largely responsible for this. They knew about the virus and for a long period before they revealed it to the rest of the world, and they were very reclusive about all that. They didn't let our intelligence agencies know all the details they needed, and we could have stemmed the tide of this a whole lot more. And so they're not good faith actors in this. I think everybody recognizes that. I've learned not to trust anything that comes out of China. And there is a lot of talk about whether we could do it legislatively or in some other way effectively to punish them for that. We have to send a message, and this is a really bad precedent that's been set for the rest of the world.
So do we get financial damages from China? Do we get them to forgive our debt? What could happen?
Well, you always try to exhaust diplomatic channels first, and China is an interesting, ally sometimes, opponent other times. Most people regard them as not a friend and ally of the U.S., and certainly the president is wary about that. They are a trading partner, a very important one, so they're delicate. There's a lot of nuance there, but I think on diplomatic channels at least, we ought to expect them to pay for some of these damages, and we'll see how that shakes out.
What's the likelihood of that, do you believe? I mean, it's just hard to trust anything from China at this point. I think everyone's just so distrusting and disgusted with them.
Yeah, that's right, and the disgust is well-deserved. Look, they are a very important trading partner for us and vice versa, and so it's a delicate balance we do all the time with them. For example, a lot of our pharmaceuticals, a large portion of those are manufactured in China. So you can't completely shut down all of that. It would be even more destructive for the U.S. economy. So we have to navigate that carefully. But I think the entire world, the United Nations and all other countries are pointing the finger at China and understanding that they're largely responsible for the scope of this disaster.
And Congressman, I want to give everyone a chance to give their final thoughts. My question, as you get ready to make your final thoughts, is we are seeing that the U.S. may be the hardest hit out of the world. Do you think that's largely due to underreporting, possibly from other countries?
I think that's certainly a part of it. And the other thing you have to remember, it's a great blessing to live in a free and open society, but we're probably more mobile than any other people in any other part of the world, any other country. And we move around a great big space, and each state has its own little area and all of that. All those things are great. It's what we love about being Americans. But at a time like this, when a pandemic is spreading, it becomes a real challenge. And I think that's also a big part of what we're facing.
Congressman, final thoughts?
Well, we're going to get through this. We're Americans. We have faced unprecedented challenges before, and we will emerge better on the other side. You have to look for the good and the blessing in some of this, as difficult as it can be. And one good thing is that people's priorities are being realigned right now, and in the end, maybe that'll help us as Americans to get back to the family and traditional values and all those things that have really made America great in the first place. And so we need to all be on our knees, and we need to follow the recommendations to stay home and let this thing get control sooner than later.
Couldn't agree with you more. Mr. Thibodeau, your final thoughts.
Yes, many families, the community, the state, the nation, we're in a valley right now, but we will get through it. We're just going to have to go through it and process through. From an economic standpoint and a banking standpoint, which I can speak on, I would tell you that if you think that you have any need at all, take advantage of these programs. It's unprecedented, and it's a great opportunity to help your business, to keep your people employed, and to keep our community moving forward.
And let's send it back to Don Pearson, Louisiana Economic Development Secretary. Your job was already tough. What about now and going forward?
Well, we manage in all different kinds of climates, and this one now has become challenging. We see some trends emerging. Certainly the conversation with the congressman regarding China and impacts is also a pathway that I think you'll see more importance attached to, and that is bringing those kinds of manufacturing. He pointed out pharmaceuticals, absolutely, but a number of other products as well. We have become dependent, maybe too much, on some of the products and elements that they bring, and so that can be a great opportunity for the U.S. going forward. For today, certainly we're just thankful and appreciative of the strong leadership that we're seeing at a federal level. The Louisiana congressional delegation is doing a great job for us. There is some competition among the states, and they're standing up for Louisiana every day. Certainly our state leadership, I can tell you firsthand, they're working tremendously to try to mitigate, to prepare for the medical surge that's coming. There's some dark days ahead.
There are.
So this is a challenging thing to manage. Please know that resources we are updating every day at the LED website, and stand ready to answer calls from businesses at our hotline, and all information available at opportunitylouisiana.com.
Thank you very much. Hardy, you get our last 10 seconds.
I just want to say there's lots of great resources out there for small business. Please contact your CPA, your financial institution. Take advantage of these loan programs, the tax credits that are out there for small business. This is the time that the federal government has really stepped up to help us, and we need to utilize the tools that we've been provided.
All right. Thank you so much to all of our panelists tonight. That'll do it for us.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a good evening and stay safe, stay healthy.